And Gerard, you've written about this too, that under Tony Abbott's leadership, the coalition is gaining votes from Labor. So it's not the disaffected voters who go to the Greens they need to be so concerned about. They've got to get those voters back who have already strayed to the coalition.
Yeah, they've got to get them back. And I think a number of Labor commentators like Rod Cameron and Bruce Hawker completely underestimated Tony Abbott. If you just look at that poll there, I mean, the government's support begins falling away when the promise on the carbon tax is broken. Tony Abbott has a low satisfaction rating, but it's around the same as Malcolm Fraser had just before he became Prime Minister. And Malcolm Fraser had one of the greatest electoral victories in Australian history. So approval rating for an opposition leader doesn't matter very much. Helen Clark had a very low approval rating in New Zealand. She still was Prime Minister for a long time. The problem is that Labor's lost support, particularly in New South Wales, Queensland and Western Australia, not only there, particularly in the suburbs and the regional centres, where Tony Abbott has a lot of appeal to workers and their families on middle incomes and lower incomes, and this was traditionally Labor's area. So Labor's problem is Tony Abbott and the coalition. The Greens are holding in around 10 to 12%. They haven't gone up, they haven't gone down. They're not Labor's problem.
So to get the votes back from the coalition, the less they look like the Greens, the better. And therefore the most recent strategy that they've unveiled is the right one, isn't it?
I don't think that Labor has a chance of winning back those coalition votes.
I'm asking whether or not they've got a chance. I'm
Don't
saying
put Piers in an invidious situation.
As a strategy?
Trying to do it. The strategy is the right one.
Look, I think that as Gerard's saying and as Andrew's saying, that the Greens are really a peripheral issue in terms of the outcome of the next election, Barry.
Yeah, but that's a different thing to the... Annabelle, what do you think? Do you think that perhaps the strategy
a peripheral issue
of looking
because
less
they're
like
shackled to the government in quite obvious ways, you know? They're a big issue for the government because the government... let's take the asylum seekers issue, is confronted with an effective coalition partner that won't compromise with them, so they're trying to get the opposition to compromise instead. I mean, that is a problem. It's a presentational problem. It's a perception problem because, you know, people look at the government and think that they're lashed to the Greens. In terms of the electoral situation, as Andrew's outlined in his excellently nerdy way, it's you know, the government isn't losing actual electoral support to the Greens. Where they're losing support is to the coalition. So in that sense, this sort of recent push to kind of carry on about how unrealistic the Greens are and how completely alien they are in terms of values, I mean, what they're trying to do is send a message to those people that have crossed over to the coalition to say, look, you know, we may be kind of lashed to these people in the sense of holding power in the House of Representatives, but, you know, we don't like everything they stand for. But the problem is it's just a little clumsy when you're still lashed to them, right?
Yeah, that's not good enough. I think the strategy's right. I agree with Barry. I mean, that's what Labor's got to do. They've got to do something dramatic, like dump the carbon tax or support the coalition's policy on asylum seekers. If you do that...
Well, they practically do support the coalition's policy on asylum seekers.
Well, no, they don't.
90%.
They don't support it because that's why the coalition's not supporting the Senate. So... or in the reps for that matter.
They've done just about as much.
But they'd have to do something really dramatic or drop the carbon tax. Now, if you did that, then you do distance yourself from the Greens. If you go along with these policies, whilst I agree with what Labor people are saying, I think that's exactly the right thing to do. I don't think it's going to have any impact because it's not going to send out any particular message.
And
so
Piers, they've been so
the
successful. Sorry, Annabelle. The coalition's been so successful in winning over these votes that now they're talking about decapitating the heads of the next generation of Labor leaders. And
so I read.
Yeah, and they're aiming at seats that are out there at around about 12%. Are they just getting a touch cocky, do you think?
I read all of that, and quite frankly, I didn't think that they were doing anything that they generally haven't done.
What, they would target seats out on 12%?
But, you know, who said that there was all unnamed spokesmen saying that they always pour resources into seats at election time. I think that the support in the community, the 8% of votes that the polls show that they would take at this time from Labor, gives them the sense that, you know, perhaps those resources won't be wasted. But those 12% seats have always been a challenge, particularly for people who are trying to cut their teeth in politics, Barry. You know that as well as I do. The guys who are not going to get the safe seats go and show their muscle in a hard seat, and that's how they're blooded in this game.
I love the decapitation strategy. It's kind of, newsflash A, coalition will attempt to win this seat. The newsflash B, and this time we're not going to pre-select buffoons, so take that.
Yeah.
That should